Hello, I'm Dr. Robert Kaufmann, and we're about to go beyond the terminus. Clinicians using the traditional Schilder-based one vertical compaction of gutta-percha technique to obturate their canals have several options for pluggers. Back in the 1970s, the traditional method of one vertical obturation used an open flame generated by gas in order to heat hand instrument type heat carriers that looked a lot like lateral condensation spreaders. These Schilder heat carrier instruments were named O and double O according to the thickness and had two lengths, short and long. Heated until cherry red, they were pushed into the canal to warm the gutta-percha to allow for compaction. We now use mostly cordless devices for carrying heat into the canals. Not only is it safer, we don't burn up the old stainless steel instruments that occasionally needed replacing because of the tremendous heat. The newer electronic heat carriers also have various lengths and tapers that were not available with the original hand instrument versions. Unfortunately, as with any electronic device, calibration can be an issue. The heat present at the tip sometimes is not the same temperature as that indicated in the digital display, and it's been my experience that the tips tend to be less efficient as they age with use. Heat carriers can also accumulate remnant burnt gutta-percha on the tips, seen as a discoloration. This frequently happened with the old Kerr touch and heat corded models of heat carriers, whereas the older non-electric tips were solid, and they could be brought back to a nice silver color with a bit of fine sandpaper. This can't be easily done with the electronic versions because the electronic tips are essentially hollow electrodes with a wire in the center. Aggressive use of sandpaper in these tips can sever the electrical connection at the instrument tip and destroy the heating element. These original Schilder heat carriers were paired with corresponding stainless steel Schilder pluggers that had markings at 5mm increments. They were sized number 8 to number 12 in half sizes. There was a short set, often referred to as a posterior set, that had markings at 5, 10, 15, and 20 millimeters. These were most often used in posterior teeth because these teeth generally had working lengths of around 20 millimeters, plus or minus depending upon the anatomy of the tooth and the state of the tooth. If we use the classic Schilder method of obturation, we eventually want our pluggers to be within 5 to 7 millimeters of the working length for adequate pack. A second set, known as the anterior set, had similar markings but extended the plugger 5 millimeters further to a 25 millimeter instrument. These were mostly used for longer anterior teeth such as canines and the occasional long molar root. The classic hand-prepared canal shapes produced thicker canals that were traditionally prepared with a combination of gates, glidden drills, hand reamers, and files. As NiTi instrumentation evolved over the last 25 years, larger shapes gave way to more conservative preparation techniques. The majority of the shaping procedure is now performed with the use of multiple taper, engine-driven, nickel-titanium rotary instrumentation. These increasingly flexible and efficient rotary engine-driven instruments prepared canals more easily with less sacrifice of tooth structure. Hand instruments still have their place in the negotiation, exploration, and scouting of canals, as well as attempting to finish multiple POEs and subtleties that are not easily or safely accessed with engine-driven files. The original Schilder pluggers that were used with these hand file created shapes were too thick and not sufficiently tapered to deal with these newer preparations. Binding of the plugger is expressly forbidden in the warm gutta-percha technique because it places spreading forces on the dentin rather than directly on the gutta-percha alone. So, as the canal tapers decreased, a new generation of .04 taper NiTi instruments were created and made available. The brilliant clinician, my late colleague Dr. Joe Dovgan, invented a terrific set of dual-sided NiTi pluggers that were specifically created to address this problem. Not only are they ergonomic, because unlike traditional pluggers, they're double-sided and take up less space on your tray, but they're also well-designed and inexpensive when compared to other signature instruments sold by competing manufacturers. They were manufactured by Miltex, and like the original Schilder pluggers, they were available in both smaller posterior and longer anterior sizes, just like the traditional instruments. More importantly, unlike the traditional steel Schilder pluggers, which are relatively inflexible, they are made of NiTi and can be bent to enter an access opening that may be difficult to negotiate. Because they are NiTi, they spring back to their original shape. They were also extremely attractively priced. Unfortunately, the Miltex company is no longer making them, and old stock is extremely difficult to locate. If you do find a set or two, snap them up quickly because they are rare. I still keep a number 11 and number 10 Schilder plugger on my tray for larger canals, but most of the obturation is done with a TFD 6080, black and blue, followed by a TFD 3545, white and green. The N and XL designations refer to the lengths, XL being the longer version. Several companies make versions of these pluggers, such as the Buchanan plugger, which has one side made of nickel titanium and the other side made of stainless steel. Signature models are often outrageously priced and simply don't have the elegance and efficiency of these original Dovgan pluggers. I dedicate this video to my friend, Dr. Joe Dovgan, who passed away in 2013 at the age of 52. He is sorely missed in the endodontic community. Joe was a great clinician, an innovator, an inventor, as well as being a good friend and a wonderful person. I am reminded of this and of him with each case I pack using his pluggers. Thanks, Joey. Remember, when we do the right thing, we both get better, clinicians and patients. Thank you for joining me, and make sure that you like and subscribe so you don't miss any future broadcasts. I look forward to our next trip when we go beyond the terminus. See you then.